Bring a little slice of Rome to your home with these 3 variations on Roman pizza. It's thin, crispy, and absolutely delicious.
I'm Greg, and you're watching The Slice. Rolling out the pizza dough instead of stretching it by hand ensures an evenly thin, crisp, almost cracker-like crust. You're going to want to stick around for the end of the video to see all of our delicious topping combinations.
Homemade pizza dough is better than store-bought every time, and it's so quick and easy to do, it's worth that little tiny bit of extra effort.
In a bowl, sprinkle 1/4 teaspoon active dry yeast over 2/3 cup of warm water. Let stand until foamy. That'll take about 5 minutes.
If you're not getting any smell or activity in here, any bubbling up, then you know your yeast is no good and you need to go out and buy some fresh. I'm already smelling this. Yep, it's there.
Add 1 3/4 cups of unbleached bread flour, 1½ teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil.
Just combine those dry ingredients first and create a little well there in the bottom of the bowl. Add your wet. And then we just gradually want to pull that flour into the well, gradually incorporating that wet and dry mixture.
Stir until a shaggy, ragged dough forms. Transfer to a lightly floured work surface and knead until smooth and elastic. This will take anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes.
So now we're at the stage where it's tacky. It's wanting to pull up with my hand, but it's not leaving any dough behind. So I know that we're good to go here without adding any more flour. And really, adding any more flour at this point would be detrimental to your final dough. The dough should be totally smooth and just have a little bit of shine to it. I'm gonna do the old shaping into a ball here before we get it back into the bowl. Yeah, that's springing back nice and quick. So I think we've worked those glutens enough. Now at room temperature, it'll be ready within 2 hours. But if you planned ahead, even better, put it in the fridge for up to 3 days. The longer it sits in the fridge, the more it's going to develop amazing flavor and a beautiful texture. And if it's doubled in the fridge before you're ready to use it, no worries, just punch it down and let it carry on in the fridge. That's it, homemade pizza dough.
Transfer to a bowl brushed with oil, turning the dough to evenly coat. Cover with plastic wrap. Let stand in a warm place until about doubled in volume. This will take anywhere from 1.5 hours to 3 hours.
Even if you're a red sauce on your pie kind of guy or gal like me, I'm going to convince you to switch over to Alfredo with this super quick and easy version that happens in a flash. Just watch.
In a saucepan, melt 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter over medium heat. When it's simmering, add a teaspoon of minced garlic and cook until fragrant, about 1 minute. Add 1 cup of heavy cream and return to a simmer. Cook until thickened slightly.
Just give this a stir a few times as it's cooking down and watch your temperature, because any kind of dairy, but especially cream and milk, can boil over very quickly in your pan if it's too hot or you're not paying attention.
This will take anywhere from 6 to 8 minutes.
By reducing this cream mixture, we're taking out some of that excess moisture from the cream, and that'll ensure that that thin pizza crust stays nice and crispy. This is now reduced, so we can take it off the heat, turn this off, and now we add our Parmigiano Reggiano. Very important to buy the wedge of cheese and look for that name stamped on the rind. There are many imposters out there, particularly in the pre-grated kind of parm. Don't buy those. They have all kinds of things in them that aren't true Parmigiano Reggiano.
Whisk in 1/2 cup of finely grated Parmigiano Reggiano until smooth.
And of course, it's really important to season as you go. I'm gonna add a pinch of salt, but not too much because that cheese also has a lot of salt in it. So I'm gonna taste this sauce before I add any more. Always taste as you go. More salt. All right, and we're gonna let this cool down before we build our pizza. It will thicken more as it cools, and you don't wanna put a hot sauce onto a cold dough. Again, that could cause your dough to go a bit soggy rather than crisp. This beautiful dough has been slow fermenting in the fridge for a couple of days, which just means that it's also slowed down the proofing process, but in the meantime, it's developed so much more flavor, and those glutens have really relaxed, and this is going to be a beautiful, springy, elastic dough. It's very fragrant. Punch it down always before you start to work with it. That is important.
Divide the dough in half.
And in true Roman pizza style, we want this to be really thin and oblong. So we're going to go for a rough oval shape. So it's good to start your dough in that direction. You can just use your fingers to press it out. You can see all these beautiful little air bubbles from the proofing process. That's going to ensure that we get a really crisp, bubbly, almost cracker-like crust.
Roll one piece of dough into an approximate 9 by 15-inch oval.
And I'm doing this right on parchment. I find that makes it really easy. You can also sprinkle a little bit of semolina flour or a fine cornmeal. Make sure it's fine if you're using the cornmeal. Not only will that help you to roll it out, it'll also give you a little bit of extra crunch on the bottom of your pizza, if you like that. I do. And remember, a yeasted dough like this is going to rise and puff in the oven. So you really can't go too thin here. See how it's starting to spring back when I roll it like that? That's telling me that it just wants a minute to relax. So throw a clean kitchen towel or tea towel over it and just step away for a few minutes, and then it'll roll right out.
Season the dough with salt and pepper. Spread half of the Alfredo sauce evenly over the dough, leaving about a half-inch border.
You go as light or as heavy as you want on your sauce and toppings. I like to have a thin layer of dough, sauce, and toppings, so you have a harmony and balance of flavors with every bite. Your oven should absolutely be preheated at this point.
Preheat your oven to 450 degrees.
With your stone, if you have it, or a baking sheet, preheating in the oven. That's going to help develop that beautiful color and crisp crust on the bottom.
Dollop small spoonfuls of ricotta evenly over the sauce.
If you can find the Italian style, it's really great. It's sometimes sold in little buckets or baskets. It's drier than a commercial ricotta that you might get in the grocery store. So if you have access to an Italian style ricotta, I highly recommend it for your pizza.
Top evenly with peas and prosciutto.
Now, I like to trim the excess fat off the prosciutto when I'm using it in this style. If you're serving this on a charcuterie board, you would leave it exactly as it is. I don't even like peas, but I'll eat them on this pizza because they're so delicious with the creamy ricotta, the garlicky Alfredo, and that salty, meaty prosciutto. Now, you can transfer this to the oven either on the back of a sheet tray, just slide it right up like that, or I have my beloved pizza peel. I use this thing all the time. I make pizza at home at least once a week, sometimes twice.
Bake until bubbly and golden brown in places, about 8 to 10 minutes.
Now, just like when you saute spinach on the stovetop, you might notice that a huge bowl of spinach cooks down to nothing. Well, guess what? The same thing is going to happen on your pizza. So go more generous than you think. That looks pretty good. And a drizzle of oil. Layering those flavors. Also help with the spinach. I'm going to give this a little more salt. Chili pepper flakes for a little heat. Have a light touch with the chili flakes initially, and then you can always put a bowl of chili flakes at the table for someone who likes it really spicy, like me. And for a final flourish, freshly grated Parmesan, always freshly grated, right over the top. And this is ready for the oven. And this is probably the most unusual way to top a pizza, something you may not have tried before. It's also one of my favorite ways. And what is it you're wondering? Well, it's sliced potatoes. You could use any kind of potato here, really. I have these little beautiful young Yukon Golds. They're less starchy than, say, a russet or an Eastern European potato. And so they have a nice texture when they're cooked on top of a pizza. And for this one, I'm going to do some red onion. and then finish it hot out of the oven with some arugula. Fresh rosemary would be beautiful here. It's a great flavor and fragrance with potatoes. It also reminds me of my grandma. She had a big rosemary bush in the front of the house. And one of my first culinary tasks as a little kid was she'd hand me the scissors and have me go snip a few sprigs when she needed them for dinner. And I just thought that was the coolest job in the whole world. And I'm gonna do a little oil. This is not in the recipe, but I find a drizzle of fresh oil over something, especially with veggies like onion and potatoes, helps them cook beautifully. And of course, you can never have too much cheese, especially when it's Parmigiano Reggiano. So a fresh lashing of that right over the top. Just go for it with wild abandon. You really can't overdo the cheese here. That's flavor, 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 big time. And this guy, our third variation, is ready for the oven. Wow, look at this beauty. Yum, yum. And this one I'm just gonna top with some fresh baby arugula. And let me show you how to cut these Roman-style pizzas. You don't have to go down the center. You don't need to cut triangles. Because of the shape, you just go right into sort of zigzaggy across. And it's that simple. Hop on the fastest flight to Rome and bring 1, 2, or all 3 of these delicious pizzas into your home.